Welcome to Uncensored.
I was just laughing listening to all that, Piers. Donald Trump's never called anybody garbage. Donald Trump called Kamala Harris's advisors garbage just like the other week. Donald Trump said America is a trash can and the world is sending their garbage, which is migrants here. Donald Trump's called me and other people that oppose him in the media the enemy of the people. He's called people human scum. He said that Haitian migrants were eating cats and dogs. Do we need to keep doing this? Like this, like we're going to pretend to be offended on behalf of Donald Trump? I mean, and Steven Crowder, by the way, his whole career, this is why he's on Rumble, not on YouTube, because he got kicked off YouTube because all he does is insult gay people, insult trans people. The only garbage I know is Steven Crowder and Donald Trump.
What's happening, everybody? Steven Crowder recently made an appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Piers Morgan also brought on some never-Trumper guy named Tim Miller. And the two debated the right versus the left's rhetoric and which side is more dangerous. That said, let's watch Steven Crowder demolish Tim Miller with facts, not feelings. Let's go.
With people.
Well, I actually agree with you, but someone who doesn't is the host of The Bulwark, Tim Miller, who has this to say in response. Tim, welcome to Uncensored.
I was just laughing listening to all that, Piers. Donald Trump's never called anybody garbage. Donald Trump called Kamala Harris's advisors garbage just like the other week. Donald Trump said America is a trash can and the world is sending their garbage, which is migrants here. Donald Trump's called me and other people that oppose him in the media the enemy of the people. He's called people human scum. He said that Haitian migrants were eating cats and dogs. Do we need to keep doing this? Like this, like we're going to pretend to be offended on behalf of Donald Trump? I mean, and Steven Crowder, by the way, his whole career, this is why he's on Rumble, not on YouTube, because he got kicked off YouTube because all he does is insult gay people, insult trans people. The only garbage I know is Steven Crowder and Donald Trump. So they're garbage. I don't think all of Donald Trump's supporters are garbage. I think that many of them are good people that have been misinformed by Donald Trump and Steven Crowder's lies.
Steven, your response.
Yeah, well, look, one thing, I don't like the way that these panels sometimes some people descend into nothing but ad hominem and interrupt each other. So I promise you, I'm going to respect your time, and you will not hear me speak a single time today, not one interruption, until you hear this bell. I just ask that you give me the floor. So not going to address the ad hominem, but I've never been banned from YouTube. As a matter of fact, this will be up on every single example that was just given was not addressed to the American people at large, and not even the Democrat voting base at large. America is for Americans. Are black people not Americans? Are Hispanic Americans not Americans? The qualifier that I have always made, and Donald Trump has always made, and the reason that so many Americans support him is because there aren't those qualifiers of race that we see in identity politics. Every single example, I could go through all of them, the people around Kamala Harris, the people surrounding her are scum and garbage. That's not going to be misinterpreted as Kamala's supporters are garbage. The voters of Donald Trump are deplorable. These people are scum. Kamala Harris is dumb, whatever he said. That's very different from the hatred, the reviling of the American voter. Your floor.
Hey, if you like watching videos like these, like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Let's get back to the video.
Yeah, you know what, Tim Miller, what I would say is people on the left, they're very, very quick to be very offended by Trump's rhetoric. This has been going on for 8 years now, that this guy talks in a disparaging way about people. It's unacceptable, it's awful, blah, 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 blah. But you think nothing as a group of constantly flashing the Nazi word around, fascist, Nazi, and now garbage. Why is it one rule for Trump? Why do you want him to clean up the way he talks, but a completely different set of rules for your own side? Why are you allowed to just go around calling people mass murderers?
I'm not. Like I said, the only people I called garbage were Donald Trump and Steven Crowder because they've acted like garbage by disparaging people their entire careers. Like that was the whole premise of both of these two guys' careers. Donald Trump's just been a little bit more successful at it. So Joe Biden's statement, I think, was like totally nonsensical marble mouth. And I was maybe one of the most vocal people saying Joe Biden shouldn't run for president again. Joe Biden isn't running for president. Kamala Harris is running for president. And she gave a speech on the ellipse where she talked about how MAGA voters would have and MAGA politicians would have a seat at the table in her administration. So you guys are trying to make something out of nothing, and you're trying to do this fake outrage where it's like in soccer, Piers, where you guys are flopping. You're flopping on the ground, hoping the refs call a foul on Joe Biden, when Donald Trump's whole career has been insults and lies and disparaging people, and also his actual actions have been hurtful. You know, the sexual assault that he committed on women, the fact that he banned people from coming to this country based on their religion, the separating of family. We could just go on and on about Donald Trump's behavior, the cops that got injured at the Capitol because of the riot that he started. So Donald Trump, it's not just his words, it's his actions that have been harmful. And you guys can get mad about what the soon-to-be former president, Joe Biden, like incomprehensibly said, but he's not running against Joe Biden. And it seems like a desperate ploy to like put on a fancy costume and dress up like an Oompa Loompa.
All right, Stephen, I mean, last time I checked, Joe Biden remains the current president of the United States. He is the leader of the free world. And for him to pop up as Kamala Harris is delivering her supposed great final mission statement to the electorate on a Skype call, calling half of America garbage, struck me as just, never mind anything else, incredibly bad timing, to the point where you think, was that deliberate? Is he trying to sabotage her?
Thank you. But again, I'm really going to avoid ad hominem, which is really tough because it seems to be coming from the other side of this panel here.
Well, I will note for the record that you have not gone ad hominem. And Tim, to be fair, all you've done is abuse Steve. All you've done is abuse Steve on a personal level.
All right, let me jump in here. I don't know if you caught it, but something funny. Whoever this guy is, Tim Miller, he was saying that Donald Trump's actions cause violence and are dangerous. And his example was, look at what happened at the Capitol where police were injured and assaulted based on what Donald Trump said. And then he doubles down by saying, see, we're upset by Donald Trump's actions. Tim, I'm not sure you know the difference between actions and words, because actions would suggest Donald Trump was at the Capitol beating people up. Words would be like what I'm doing now. So I'm sure it was just a memory lapse or something where you got actions and words switched up. Just for future reference, that wasn't your best argument. You might want to take that one out of the repertoire. To simplify things, the right makes memes and jokes primarily, and the left attacks groups like all of Trump voters or certain pockets of different racial groups that didn't vote for their candidate. Because again, they don't see any of you as individuals or me. They see us as groups, and we all must behave the same. So that's how they think. They can't help but to criticize entire swaths of the American public. Their whole platform is built on identity politics, so they can't get away from that type of thinking. And, you know, I've got to say, I have seen Steven Crowder make fun of gay and trans people before. And, you know, Stephen, what is possibly funny about a 6'2", 210-pound man that dresses like and thinks he's a woman? Not a gosh darn thing is funny about a giant man with a deep voice and a 5 o'clock shadow and a penis wearing a miniskirt and high heels and a crop top. There is nothing funny about it, and I don't condone it. Okay, it's kind of funny. Okay, actually, it's really funny. Okay, bad example. Let's move on. And I have seen Steven Crowder make fun of individual gay people before, and with regards to this, I'm going to say something I've thought forever, but I've never said out loud. I have to do the mandatory preface because people will take this out of context, what I'm about to say. But from the bottom of my heart, I genuinely have love for everyone. I don't think any group is better than another, and I judge people on an individual basis. With that said, look, I happen to be a heterosexual male. I'm sorry to say, but the idea of a man looking at a naked man and being like, nice, is kind of funny to me. I can't relate. It's just funny. Look, men are just gross, especially our bodies, like, especially what's downstairs. And that thing is like a monster. I don't want to see that. So you can understand why it makes me chuckle a little bit to think of a dude looking at another dude and being like, I want to tear into that. It's just funny. And so while I mean every word of that, I say it's just funny. It doesn't mean I hate anybody. It doesn't mean anybody's wrong, but jokes are jokes. We all can laugh at different things, and some things may be funny to some people and some might be to other people, but is there really ever a reason to get offended by jokes? Give me a break. Okay, so even though I took a long way to get there, what I'm saying is attacks coming from Trump about individuals that are truly just nasty people, which I've agreed with about 90% of the things he said about people. Okay, that might be a little disrespectful, a little rude. It's not the end of the world. And even when the right wing or MAGA or Trump voters are insulted by the left, we're not outraged by it. We just can't believe that the pearl-clutching left, who is so sensitive to everything that happens and is looking to be offended all the time, would engage in that kind of rhetoric, because that's what they denounce all the time from the other side. I mean, the reason why isn't shocking. I mean, they're just huge hypocrites and project everything onto everyone else. But that's the difference in these attacks. So Democrats, let's just chill with the whole Nazi, Hitler, dictator stuff. We're over it. There's over 70 million Americans that don't agree with you. So it's enough, okay? Anyway, let's get back to the video.
I actually would like to rise above that.
His whole career is all he's done is attack gay and trans people. Now he's like, he's getting offended, being called out for it. Just Google his history of his comments about gays, trans people, women. Like he is Mr. Ad hominem. So don't like try to be like, oh, I'm Mr. Nice Guy now. Come on, give me a break. Let's be honest.
Stephen?
Okay, thank you for giving me the floor. As far as it being ill-advised, I would say so with Joe Biden. The problem is that Kamala Harris was given so many opportunities to distance herself from Joe Biden. The Biden-Harris administration, she chose not to. She said there's not a thing that she would do differently, and she was one of his most important advisors in all of the decisions that had an impact. Vice presidents aren't always given such an easily identifiable pet project. She was. And I know the talking point is she wasn't the border czar, even though Biden said that. The point is she was in charge of, she was being tasked with discovering the root cause of the immigration issue. Well, we had 3 million under Donald Trump's tenure, and now we have at least 15 to 20 million on the low end. That is a huge impact that affects Americans. If we want to talk about Donald Trump's actions hurting Americans, look, I guess we're back to 2016. The issue is no Americans have lived actions that have harmed them more than the latest administration. They've lived it. They lived Donald Trump for 4 years. They've lived Biden-Harris for 4 years. It doesn't work. It falls on deaf ears. It's like Paul Revere always saying, the exact same economy is coming. The exact same economy is coming. If you want to talk about actions that have hurt, I would argue that the actions on the border, the actions on American energy, the policies, which I would like to discuss, have hurt Americans. It's why they're rejecting Kamala Harris. It's why they trust Donald Trump more on issues like the economy and immigration. And by the way, I'm one of them. But the point remains, not one example has been presented. And by the way, I'm not offended by any of this. You haven't heard me feign outrage. I've just tried to describe the situation why Americans don't like it. Not one example at all of Donald Trump referring to the American people at large as garbage or insulting them as the Democrat Party does every single election cycle. Your floor.
The other thing I would say to you, Tim, is what I find as an ongoing bizarre set of circumstances is that I keep hearing again from the left that Trump is the most racist candidate there's ever been, etc. He's a fascist and so on. How do you explain, if that is the case, how do you explain that his support amongst Black and Latino Americans is rising to record levels for him in the last 8 years? Why is that happening? Why are they gravitating to somebody who is supposedly this terrible racist?
I mean, we haven't voted yet, Pierce, so let's see how that turns out next week. It looks like we're going to have record turnout in Detroit, they just said. We'll see if there's a surprising turnout for Donald Trump there. I kind of doubt it. But this whole thing that's like, you guys want to play in this fantasy pretend world where it's like Donald Trump doesn't insult people. What? Like, everyone watching knows that's not true. Why is the left calling Donald Trump a fascist? The left isn't calling Donald Trump a fascist. John Kelly, who Donald Trump made the head of his Department of Homeland Security, who oversaw the Muslim ban 1.0, and then Donald Trump promoted him to chief of staff. And then he was his longest serving chief of staff. He wasn't a never Trumper like me. He wasn't a moderate Republican rhino. He's a down the line conservative American hero that Donald Trump hired twice, who says he is concerned that Donald Trump has fascist tendencies. And there were times during the first administration where Donald Trump wanted to do things against the law, and it required him and Mattis and Milley and others to prevent him from doing it. And he's worried that those guardrails won't be around the next term. So it's not the left, it's not MSNBC, it's not wild-eyed liberals. It's John Kelly, a conservative American hero that Donald Trump hired twice, that is saying that about him. And you guys need to reckon with that rather than just pointing fingers.
All right. I mean, Stephen, that's a fair point. There have been a number of people of John Kelly's ilk who have come forward and said they think Trump is dangerous, who did work with him at the White House. What's your response to that?
Thank you. Well, this is the same John Kelly, by the way, in The Atlantic, the same journalist who spouted the losers and suckers lie, right? This is a disgruntled former employee. Now, maybe it's true, only that same article included Donald Trump saying that we don't need to spend that much for an effing Mexican. By the way, the soldier's family immediately came out and refuted it. So if we're going to talk about people who don't like him, he said, she said, we can do that, or we can discuss the results for the American people and what affects them at large. We can reckon with that. There you go. That's the reckoning. I don't really care what John Kelly says, but here's the fundamental dynamic. And this is why the left, and this is certainly why legacy media, I'm not saying the media, but legacy media, ABC, NBC, CBS, and big tech, they're demanding that Americans trust their institutions, and they're blaming Americans for not trusting their institutions. This article in The Atlantic, John Kelly, is exactly why Americans don't trust those institutions. I trust the family of the soldier, not John Kelly. I trust the American people who want us to have voter ID, not people who say the most secure and fair elections of all time. When we look at the Hunter Biden laptop story, which I know will be dismissed and people say that it was allowed to after a day, that's the perfect encapsulation of the institutions that we're demanded to trust who have failed us, whether it's intelligence officials, whether it's Facebook and the CEO of which apologizing afterwards, Jack Dorsey, YouTube's, the fundamental Democratic Party, and we're told, wait, trust your institutions. Well, I don't trust the institutions that repeat lies that have been debunked, including some specifically from John Kelly. I don't trust those publications. I trust the voice of the family of that soldier. And by the way, the families of all the soldiers who overwhelmingly support Donald Trump and the Republican platform, in contrast to Kamala Harris. Your floor.
Timmy's prediction about the election really aged well, huh? About Black and Latino voters turning out for Donald Trump. Swing and a miss, pal. I'm sure Tim Miller is watching this video right now. So, Tim, I just want to talk to you directly and explain the difference between the vile, dangerous rhetoric of the left and jokes from the right. So, dangerous, vile rhetoric from the left would be all Trump voters are garbage, or I think Donald Trump is Hitler. And did you hear him say that it's not the mainstream media saying this? It was John Kelly. First of all, I don't care what John Kelly says. Second of all, leading up to the election, I seem to remember Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, Rachel Maddow, Joy Reid, all of the awful people that we cover, The View, all the awful people we cover on here all the time, literally using the word Nazi or some variation thereof every other word in every sentence they spoke about Donald Trump. So, Tim, another just awful take. So those are examples of, again, vile rhetoric, dangerous rhetoric from the left. An example of a joke from the right that really shouldn't be offensive is if I said something like, hey, this Tim Miller guy looks like a guy that was a nerd in high school but just got a makeover on the Jenny Jones show. They slapped a shirt on him, threw some mousse in his hair, and the show's stylist said, you know what would really make this outfit pop? Puka shell necklace. And that was just off the top of my head. So it may not be the funny, but you see the point. There's a difference between nasty rhetoric and jokes or calling a singular person garbage. Anyway, hopefully you get the point. Anyway, I think Steven Crowder owned this guy in this debate, and every point he made was a good one. But let me know what you think. Is my Republican Trump brainwashed mind skewing my opinion so I can only see one side of the argument? Or am I right and this Tim Miller guy just got absolutely annihilated? That's it for this video. If you like watching conservatives use facts and logics in a debate to make a point, and you like watching leftists try to make their point with feelings and manipulated words, then click on one of the 2 videos that just popped up on your screen. Otherwise, I really appreciate you being here today. The end.